The reason why we chose the guest speakers that we chose, certainly you're going to learn about their careers and their walks of life, but most importantly, I hope that you learn about their habits, their core values, and what's important to them. So this is a little bit different. This is not a career fair. This is more of a personal development and introspection fair where we're trying to get better as young men. And the guest speakers, when we leave here today, the guest speakers are going to be in the classrooms in that language hallway. All of you does anyone not have a schedule other than LP? You don't have a schedule, you just see me after, okay? In fact, is he your friend? Is he your friend? Yeah, just go with him to the three classrooms. All right, we got to get going. We're a couple minutes behind. I'm excited for our keynote speaker. When we were looking for a keynote speaker, we wanted to think outside the box and someone that was in your shoes, someone that went to school locally in central Pennsylvania, in central Dalton. And Mike Dunn is our keynote speaker. He was an unbelievable basketball player. Most of you that know me know I love basketball, and that's my life, is teaching and coaching basketball outside of being an athletic director. Mike Dunn is the premier basketball shooting coach in the country and travels all over the world to do this. But what's most important, Mike went to Central Dalton High School, and then he went to Philadelphia University, where he played for the legendary coach Herb McGee, where he's one of the best players of all time. And Mike got into what he's going to talk about, a 9-to-5 job, but continue to pursue his passion, and turn his passion into his life. And that's what I'm most excited about here today. All of our speakers that found a passion, found what they love to do, and worked relentlessly to make that happen. Without further ado, the one thing I do want to say, we're going to give the utmost respect to our keynote, the utmost respect to our speakers today. So if you can't sit next to somebody, then you need to sit somewhere else. If you can't sit next to somebody, you need to sit somewhere else, okay? All right, without further ado, give me 2 claps for Mike Dunn.
Good morning, good morning. This is really cool. I'm super excited about this. I told Dennis, opportunities like this for you may not understand it in this moment, but it's an amazing opportunity. You're going to hear some amazing speakers today, and you're going to have a glimpse into the many avenues that you can take to hopefully fulfill you and what you love to do, okay? As Dennis said, I'm a professional basketball shooting coach, which almost still sounds crazy to say. I work with players all over the world. And when Dennis initially called me and said he wanted me to be the keynote speaker, I wasn't sure if he even had the right number at first. In my mind, I don't know who wants to hear me speak, but when I ran it by my wife, she said, if you don't take that opportunity, I don't want to see you today. And whatever my wife says, that's kind of how I determine the route that I go. On Friday this week, I'll be jumping on a plane to the Canary Islands and doing a shooting clinic in Gran Canaria held by the professional basketball team there for a week. Right, so I'll be working with hundreds of kids in the Canary Islands just because of basketball. I'll come home for a day, and then I'll be home for a day, see my little girl, and then I'm hopping on a plane again, and I'm going out to Melbourne, Australia, where I've just been told all 3 of our shooting clinics in Melbourne have been sold out. In the coming spring and summer months, I'll be all over this country. I'll be in Canada, I'll be in Zaragoza, Spain, I'll be in Sicily, Italy, and I'll be in Luxembourg, all because of basketball. Last night, I stayed up just late enough, you'll see as I start to get into my habits, I stayed up just late enough to catch some of the McDonald's All-American game, because I get to watch some players that I've worked with in that game, right? I got to see NBA players score their very first NBA 3 after we had been working together for considerable amounts of time. I say all of this because as of maybe 6 years ago, I had as much experience teaching shooting as every single one of you did. Right? I was working just a normal 9-to-5 job, and now today, because I followed and continue to build upon what I believed in, I'm afforded all these amazing opportunities. And I hope that my story today, and what I share with you kind of opens up your eyes to what is possible. In a way, I'm jealous of you. And that may seem like a strange thing to say. What I'm going to talk about today, I had no idea at your age existed. I didn't know steps that I could take to continue to do what I love to do. But I'm truly envious of you because your route may not be teaching shooting, right? That's not for everybody. In fact, it still blows my mind that it's my career. But you're all good at something. And deep down, I think we all know this path that we really want to walk. We just don't maybe know how to monetize it. We don't know how to follow it. But I'm telling you that it's possible in one way or another to make whatever it is that you really do love to do deep down inside, you can make that a reality for yourself. And I think that we're all artists. I see myself as an artist in a strange way. Art is not limited to painting or music or movies. Art is in everything that we do. Every person you're going to hear talk today is an artist in their own right. They kind of made their life, right? Which is a really cool thing. You're going to hear these people talk. And to you on the surface right now in that moment, that may just seem like a job, but you'll have no idea how much they've had to work, what they've had to sacrifice in order to get to where they are today, to even be here to speak to you. So the world needs your art. However you want it, you may think that's crazy here, but the world needs what you are good at. And hopefully we can start to begin to get those wheels turning for you today. So with that being said, I hope that through my experience that this allows you to see what is truly possible. The life that you want, I don't care how big, how outrageous, how unrealistic it may seem to other people, it's not other people's dream, it's yours. The life that you want exists right now. Right now, as you are all that it takes to be whatever it is that you want to be. You may not see it in this moment, but you possess it. You possess that ability right now. And not now in the sense that you're going to walk out these doors and then all of a sudden, whatever you wanted is going to come true. But now in the sense that you possess everything that you do truly need to do whatever it is that you want to do. I hope that what we do today can help facilitate that thought. I want you to know that one of the big key phrases in my life has been thoughts become things. What you feed your mind, you will ultimately become. It's so true. I read a ton. We're going to get into that a little bit. I never read at your age. Never picked up a book. I read all the time now. We'll get into the importance of that. But Ralph Waldo Emerson said the only person that you are destined to become is the person that you eventually decide to be. It's a really, really powerful thing. Every morning I wake up in the morning, my alarm clock goes off, and it reads right across my phone. It just says, become who you are. Right? Become that person that you always believed that you were. And each day is serving in contribution to that. So, to kind of get into how I've done it, right? I teach players all over the world, coaches all over the world how to shoot basketball. To a lot of people, when I start to explain that, it doesn't make tons of sense. Like, what do you do? Well, I just taught this person how to shoot for a week. Now I'm flying here, I'm going to teach them how to shoot for a week. On paper, it's hard to arrive where I was. However, I think the majority of the people that I spoke to, even when I said I'm going to do it, or that's what I believed to be at the time, they couldn't believe it either. The only two people that really believed that it was possible were my wife and I. Right? And she was kind of my biggest fan through the whole thing in terms of continuing to support me and in my journey to that. But I get to reap the rewards of all that now because that's who I eventually decided to be. Now I say this because for the majority of my life, I had unknowingly decided to be somebody completely different, right? I finished school in Philadelphia University in 2009, and my whole goal after school was to find a job in which I could be seen and not heard. I didn't want to speak. Truth be told, I was petrified of public speaking. Like me thinking about at your age doing this makes no sense to me. I remember I took C's in classes my senior year because I wouldn't give speeches. And that's where I was with that. So my job, even I maintained that whole idea coming out of college, and it was one of those things where in my world, I was just thinking, if I could just get a job to pay the bills, I'll put my head down, I'll show up every day, I'll never be heard from, I'll be anonymous. To me, that made sense to me. Go to college, get to play sports, awesome. Got to have a really, really nice college career. Get a degree, done. Okay, now find a job. I was actually so excited about it that I delayed it for a year and went to grad school. Right? That's how excited I was about that life. And I was living, after grad school, I was living at home in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And the first time, now looking back at things, that I realized how important our thoughts are, I refused to take a job anywhere other than Philadelphia. Right? I was living in Harrisburg, could have easily gotten a bunch of jobs in Harrisburg with the connections I had, but I refused to take a job in Philadelphia, not because of some grandiose reason that I'm going to follow my dream, but for the fact that Philadelphia is where my friends were. Philadelphia was where parties were at the time, so Philadelphia is where I needed to be. And the only job offer that I got after submitting applications and going on interviews, the only job offer I got met the exact requirements that I had set for myself mentally about I wanted to be seen, not heard. I wanted to remain anonymous. I wanted to be able to come in, clock in every day, and go home. It was the only job offer I got. Without knowing it at that time, I had kind of fallen into this. I'd fallen into my own mindset. What if I would have set my goal back then to say, I'm going to take a career that's way outside of what I'm capable of? Who knows what could have came to me there? But what I thought about came to me directly. Right? It's this idea of kind of flying low. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the story of Icarus. I just read a book recently called The Icarus Deception by Seth Godin. And in the Icarus Deception, the story is a father and a son are trapped on the island of Crete. They're being held captive there. And the father wants his son to get off the island. So what the father does is he fashions these wings made of feathers and wax, and says the whole goal is to put these wings on Icarus' back, have him fly across the ocean, and he can fly off to freedom. But his warning upon Icarus leaving, he told Icarus, he said, when you leave here, he said, do not fly too close to the sun. He said, because if you fly too close to the sun's going to melt the wax on your wings, you're going to plunge into the ocean, our escape plan doesn't work. And at the time that story became super popular was at a time during the Industrial Revolution where schools started preaching the same message. The idiom was actually developed at that point in time. That's where the idiom comes from. Don't fly too close to the sun. Don't stand out. Follow directions was the big thing. The problem with the way that story was told was that they left out a key component of it. Icarus' father did not tell him not to just fly too high. Icarus' father told him not to fly too low. Sure, the sun could melt the wax off his wings and he could fall, but actually, it was more dangerous to fly low. Because if you flew too low, the water and the moisture will come up, weigh the wings down. So in this case, it wasn't as dangerous to fly high as much as it was to play it safe and fly low. And I think it's an amazing thing to think about. My whole life, I felt like flying high was never an option for me. That wasn't something that I thought that I was destined to be. Anything outside of the ordinary in which I was not able to follow directions, that's not going to be me. I had a conversation with my dad who came up the other week, and he looked at me and he said, Mike, he said, I can't believe what you're doing now. He said, your whole life, he said, you've always lived inside of this box. He said, now you've broken completely outside of it. He said to me, it was a big moment for me, he said to me, he's like, I could have never taught you. He's like, I could have never taught you. He said, but you're out here doing it. You're flying high. So, where this all started for me, I had the job that I had, quote unquote, thought into existence that I would remain anonymous. And 5 months into that job, a big time change happened for me. Mark Twain is quoted as saying, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why, which I think is an extremely powerful quote. My why happened to me on a Friday evening when I was crossing the street on Henry Avenue in Philadelphia, and I was smacked by a Jeep. I was walking across the street, car came out, wasn't paying attention, and just ran me over in the street. Right? And nothing kind of wakes you up to the brevity of life quite like a near-death experience does. I wish my why wouldn't have come from me going in and out of consciousness on the road, or tearing everything on my knee, road rash, and a dislocated kneecap. I wish it would have been a little bit easier in that moment. but I wouldn't trade that moment for the world. That moment woke me up to see just how short this life is. Nietzsche has a quote, big-time philosopher, says, life not 1,000 times too short to ever be bored. I was living a bored life. I was living something that I didn't enjoy doing, right? I was okay with just existing. Up until that point, I had realized that my entire life was being lived in a way which I looked at it as if life was always happening to me, and it wasn't happening for me. But when I switched that off in my mind, started to reevaluate everything that happened, I've somehow followed this path, and a path in which I'm really excited to share with you today on how I got there. But a path that has somehow forged its way into allowing me to do some amazing, amazing things, and somehow, in a serendipitous way, I get to spend time with you, which to me is actually a really, really cool thing. I've had huge visions for myself. I've had visions of talking to a group of kids like you. I wish I could talk to young men all over the world like you, in the way I get to, because when I do my shooting clinics, it's as much about life and understanding what you're capable of as much as it is shooting the basketball. So at this moment, I mean, I'm living the life how I've designed it, everything that I've written down, everything that I've spoken to, everything that I've really set out to do, I'm doing and I continue to do. And I don't want that to come from a place of an ego-driven comment. I want that to come from a place of if I can do it, you 100% can do it too. So over the years, I've collected specific habits that have allowed me to do this. Specific habits that have allowed me to discover who I am. Specific habits that have allowed me to break free of a working life that I wasn't fulfilled in. And there are habits that all of you can start to apply today. There are habits that, man, I wish somebody would have told me how important this is. And Dennis just made a great point. He was just talking to us. He said, what I say today may not resonate with you today. It may not resonate with you 5 years from now. I still call certain people. I'll call my dad, and I'll still tell him about certain things that he said to me when I was a kid. I'll say, I get it now, Dad. I understand it. So I'm hoping that with what we do today, when we talk about maybe in some way, that will start to carry over into your life. The number one habit, and you're not going to like this habit as a high school kid. I'm telling you, you're not going to like it at all. The number one habit is wake up early. When I got in my car accident, I'd only been working at that job for 5 years or 5 months at the time, so I could barely walk. But I got the call from my job, and my job said, "Hey, Mike, if you don't come in, right? If you don't make it into the office next week, so you haven't accrued enough PTO yet, we're gonna have to let you go. We're gonna have to put you on short-term disability. Your check's gonna be much shorter." At the time, my check was already pretty small, right? My check wasn't anywhere where I wanted it to be. So it motivated me to start to get into rehab and get my leg back to health. The only time slot available for the physical rehab was a place close to my job, but it was at 6 a.m. At that point in my life, I'd probably seen 6 a.m. 2 times. Well, maybe more than that, because our coach would randomly have 6 a.m. practices. I had never seen 6 a.m. Let alone my place that I lived was 45 minutes from my job, so this means I was waking up at around 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure I could get my butt to rehab to get my leg right. But through that, early morning, having to get up, started to fall in love with the mornings. Earl Nightingale is a famous author, and he's a YouTube video that I think I listened to for a year straight. It's called 19 Minutes to Change Your Life. And it's one of those, him just talking, amazing music playing in the background. It's an absolutely incredible and transformational video. I'm going to read here. He talks about the power of getting up early. And in that, he says, start getting up a little earlier than you're accustomed to. This gives you time that 95% of the country are not using at all. 1 hour earlier a day gives you 6.5 40-hour work weeks a year. Waking up 1 hour a day gives you 6.5 extra 40-hour work weeks a year. When I first heard that, and I then decided I'm going to pursue this basketball thing, 1 hour early, I'm making up 2 hours early. Right? I'm going to give myself all the time that I can. I'm going to build this business while everybody else is sleeping. Right? If you want uncommon results, you're going to have to operate outside the common hours. That's just the way it's going to have to be. right? I couldn't just leave my job. I couldn't just go pursue the passion without having some type of financial income coming in because I still had a family to support. So everything that I did was built in the morning, right? I built a social media following that's allowed me to leverage things into thousands and thousands of clients all over the world, right? Just because I was waking up early, I would make content, I would work on Minecraft, I would do virtual things, I'd be in the gym with certain players before my job would start. All of that becomes so, so important. You can try to convince me that work at 5 p.m. is the same as work at 5 a.m., and I will shoot it down because I've done both. Work at 5 a.m. is way different than work at 5 p.m. Work at 5 a.m. means that you just made an entire lifestyle shift to be able to get up and work at 5 a.m. every day. That means you gotta go to bed on time, that means you need to eat right, that means your relationships need to be in order, which I found. I couldn't just wake up early and go to sleep as early as I could and then forget about my wife and my kid. What are we doing, right? But you have to do a complete lifestyle shift in order to start to wake up and do real legitimate work at 5 o'clock in the morning. I encourage everybody to try it. It's not easy, right? But the results that you can see from it can be, it can be huge. The second thing, I'll keep this one short, and this is something I found out the hard way too, is get in shape. I know this may sound like a strange thing to say, but the mind and the body are connected. When I got hit by the car and I was going through the rehab, at one point I got up to about 265 pounds. Right? For reference, I'm 215 pounds right now. Okay? I blew up, right? I blew up, and it was no coincidence to me that as I was walking around at that weight, I was also miserable up here. Right? When I started going to the rehab, it made me fall in love with the gym. Right? It made me really start to see how me getting in shape started turning the wheels up here to what else is possible. You can see transformation in your body. That's really, really easy. But then you'll start to see, well, I can see transformations in everything else. Right? And that was a huge piece, a huge learning part for me. There's another quote by Nietzsche. He says, "There is more philosophy in your human body than there is in your deepest philosophy." You'll start to learn things about yourself the more you get in shape. It's a huge, huge piece of it all. The more I worked out, the more energy I had. It had to co-align because I was essentially working 2 full-time jobs. I was working a full-time job that at my full-time job, nobody else knew I was doing a basketball thing. I'll get into that in just a bit. But that's what helped me do it. Getting in shape really allowed me and afforded me the ability to do both. Number 3, write your goals down. Once you write it down, it becomes real, right? You want to look at what you do every single day. Back in 2016, I was at a work conference in Boston. I was sitting there in a conference room much like this one, and I felt like I had an out-of-body experience. I started to look around at everybody in that room, and I thought, man, is this what I'm destined to do? Is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? I left that conference room, and I called my wife, and I'm on the phone, and I'm just ranting to her. I said, I got to do something with basketball. Basketball needs to work out. This has to happen. This has to happen. And she stopped me, and she said, Mike, I don't want to hear you talk about it anymore. She said, it's time for you to put action behind your words. I don't want to hear you complain about your job. I don't want to hear you say what you're capable of doing. I want you to do it. I went home to the hotel that right after I was eating after that call. I grabbed a piece of hotel notepad paper and I wrote on that paper. I signed and dated. I said, "Become the best shooting coach in the world." Signed, dated. That piece of paper goes with me everywhere I go today. At that point in time, nobody knew I existed in the basketball world as a Keynote teacher. Nobody had the slightest clue. In that moment, I put it down on paper, and in my mind, it was done. I just made a contract with myself. Write your goals down. When you write it down, you make it very, very real. Sometimes seeing it helps you believe it. I have a notebook that I continue to write in today that I just call, on the front of it, it just says, I am. In that notebook, every morning, I write down everything that I believe that I am. Things that don't exist right now. Right? If you looked at me and you looked at my life, and when I'm writing that book, it wouldn't co-align. But in my mind, that's all coming to be. That's what I'm capable of. I look at it every single morning. I have found that working with even some of the top players in the world, right? I've worked with players that are going to hear their names called this summer in the top 10 of the NBA draft, others that will be called in this draft at all. I found that it's not the work that people are good at, it's the belief side of things that people struggle with. Even the very best in the world at what they do. Right? So I have them and I have encouraged them. Go get a notebook. And every morning I want you to write who you are. Say, I think you're the best shooter in the world. Right? Scouting service was saying, no way. No, this guy can't shoot. Well, in his notebook, if the scouting service would open it up, they would see I'm the best shooter in the world. I'm the best shooter in the world. I get texts, I'm the best shooter in the world. I just had a kid yesterday, a high school kid, same thing, amazing ability. After the workout, he comes up to me. That's part of the workout. Comes up to me, he just hands me his notebook. He said, Coach, I just wanted to show you that ever since you told me to write things down, I've been doing it every day. Right? I had a dad the other day call me and say, Mike, my son has this notebook. He's like, since you gave him this notebook, he hasn't missed a day. Stuff like that is so powerful, man. Stuff like that is what starts to get you towards where you eventually want to go. Number 4 is going to be read. One of my favorite quotes is, the world is made up of words. And you know the words that make up the world. You can do with it whatever you wish. You can talk in a way that a bunch of people are going to understand the same point, different ways. One of the guys that I listen to a lot is named Naval Ravikant. He's an entrepreneur. I think he created AngelList. But in that book, or in one of his books, he's quoted as saying, read what you love until you love to read. Just get in the habit of reading, even if it's like 10, 15 minutes a day, because what's going to happen is it's going to put you in the habit of picking up a book, picking up a magazine, I don't care what it is, and somehow, in some weird way, that's going to lead you to something completely different, completely off track than you've ever read before, which could give you a complete mind shift on what you do. There are life lessons in books, there's life lessons within the quotes within that book. It's all great stuff. It's amazing how 6 words, 8 words in a sentence can completely flip how you start to see life. And I think that's an important thing. These days, and to wrap up the book part, I read the same books over and over again. I tend to find the best books out there, and then I'll read them over and over again. Bob Proctor, he used to give a bunch of speeches, passed away recently, but he said, if you read a book the second time, you won't see something in it you didn't see before. You see something in yourself that wasn't there before, right? The best books in the world can be read over and over and over again, because you're going to find new information about yourself within it. Number 6, imagine. This seems like maybe a little bit out there, but the entire world is imagination. Everything that you see around today, this auditorium, the chairs that you sit in, the sneakers you're wearing, all of this was at one point just a thought in somebody's mind. You can create, you can become whatever it is that you think about. Neville Goddard has a quote, he says, if a physical fact can produce a psychological state, and a psychological state can produce a physical fact, what you think about and carry around your mind, you will ultimately start to move towards and will start to become. When I was working one of the jobs that I had, I would actually take myself to a park bench in which I would go to this park bench and I'd sit there by myself and I'd overlook this river, and in my mind for 10 minutes every single day I would see myself doing things like I'm doing now, see myself teaching players and coaches all over the world how to shoot. And while my exact circumstances were telling me everything that I wasn't a shooter or a professional shooting coach at the time, my mind was telling me elsewhere. It didn't matter what my physical surroundings were, my mental surroundings were telling me, this is who you are, this is who you're going to continue to be, all right? Real quick story, Dennis offered me, so to kind of give you an idea of how I would do things working in 9 to 5, Dennis asked me to come speak at a shooting camp, and for multiple summers, to come speak at that camp, I would arrive in my work clothes, change out of my work clothes into basketball clothes, do the shooting clinic, change back into work clothes, and then head back to my 9 to 5, where I knew it was going to have to be a late evening for me because I went over my allotted lunch hours. So I had to tell my wife I'm going to be a little bit late that night. But to me, that was my job. I was a professional shooting coach, and I needed to take that opportunity no matter what the cost was. The last thing is just compounding. I want you all to just understand that each day that if you start to take action towards your goals, each day may not seem like a win, but each day is, right? You may not know it, but yet as long as you're waking up in your purpose, as long as you're waking up and working towards what it is that you love to do, understand that you may not see it, but you're making strides to becoming whatever it is that you're setting out to do. The power of compounding is amazing. Einstein said that compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. Do not underestimate what you are capable of doing over an extended period of time, right? It took me 5 years from when I officially wrote down that I was going to be the best shooting coach in the world to ever make that the one thing that I was doing. to make that the one thing that was earning the living and supporting my family, okay? So understand, things take time. And I could have looked at that as each day I was failing, but each day in my mind I was growing closer and closer to reaching that goal. And finally, it's not enough to just be good at what you decide to do. Who you are as a person, your character, how you treat other people, how you treat women, we're young men in here, how you treat women becomes extremely, extremely important. Everything that you say on the outside to anybody is a reflection of who you are on the inside. Understand that when you're talking to everybody and you're going through life, right, you're going to form these relationships that you never know how they're going to come back around. You don't know who you're talking to. Right? You'd be talking to somebody's sister, you'd be talking to somebody's mother. You never know the situation which you're coming from. Come from a place of respect, and no matter what you do. It's not enough just to be great at the thing that you're pursuing professionally. You need to be great at what you're doing in terms of the interpersonal relationships as well. And one really quick story before I get out of here in terms of how that can be put into action. I've done some consulting work for the University of Miami, which is in the Final Four. And last year, I was at the Syracuse-Miami game. So Coach Larinaga is in his first Final Four this year. Okay? Big time deal. I don't know if you're a basketball fan. It's a big deal. Final Four is a big deal. So we go to the Syracuse-Miami game, my wife and I were sitting courtside. Miami goes down 25 in the second half. Miami comes back and has one of their biggest comebacks in school history in the second half, and they win this game at Syracuse, okay? ACC coach, Hall of Fame coach, they win this game by 20. They go through the handshake line. Everybody's going crazy, losing their minds about it. This head coach, Coach Larinaga, comes right out of the handshake line, beelines it to me, and he comes up to me and he says, "Mike, please bring your wife over here. I would really love to meet her." So at the height of what this man does, right, the very height of college basketball, 25-point comeback on the road, emotions flaring, his first thought wasn't about him as a basketball coach. His first thought was to come meet me and say and have the wherewithal to come want to talk to my wife. That stuff will stick with people longer than whatever career it is that you decide to do. At the end of the day, just be a good person. So I hope that what I shared here today with you, I hope you can take something from it. The big thing being that what you feed your mind, your habits, all that kind of stuff, it's so important. And at the end of the day, it's really important to know that whatever it is that you will decide to do in the future is exactly what you decide upon. Thank you.